This is the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast, where we spread awareness for men's mental health and spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify. New episodes drop weekly.
I pray you will fill me with your Holy Spirit, that you'll guide this conversation. And Lord, I just pray that we reach those out there that need to hear this message, that we can raise more awareness for mental health, especially in the law enforcement and first responder communities. And also pray, Lord, that can use this opportunity to spread your gospel and to let people know that they have purpose, their life has meaning, value, and that they are loved. Lord, I'm just grateful for this opportunity and this platform. That's in your mighty name I pray. Amen. Welcome back to the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Steve. We're starting year 2 of the podcast tonight, and I'm sitting down tonight with a licensed clinical social worker, parole behavior health clinician, and an EMDR therapist that specializes in helping law enforcement and first responders process trauma and deal with their mental health. Tonight, I am joined by Harley Whitley, and we're going to focus on the hidden mental health crisis in law enforcement and the first responder world. While you're watching, hit that bell, subscribe to the channel. New episodes drop every week. Harley, thank you so much for joining the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast. My mom is a retired social worker, so small world. But yeah, I'm just curious what led you down that path to this career.
Yeah, I would say childhood for sure. I mean, so I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a licensed addictions counselor. So I have two different licenses. And I think a big part of why I wanted to do social work was um, just seeing how big of an impact mental health and addiction had in my own family. I wanted to have a different understanding of it. And I wanted to also be an advocate for folks that struggle with it. And I've always been a people person. I love people. I love hearing their stories and talking to them. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do for a while. I kind of, and I started in co-response. So that's how I started my career, was doing clinical co-response. And that's kind of what grew my passion towards working with law enforcement, especially police officers. So yeah, and then after a few years of co-response, I pivoted and now I'm in parole. So I'm still working with law enforcement, but in a little bit of a different capacity. I'm not on the streets anymore. And I don't necessarily miss it. um, but I'm in parole now and I work with folks coming out of prison and helping them get connected to mental health resources in the community. And that's a really hard population to work with. But I'm learning a lot, and I'm still learning as I go, and, working with officers, I think it is a big passion of mine, and I really do enjoy it, and having a brother who's an officer is also really impactful for me too, so.
Is your brother pretty open-minded when it comes to mental health, being a police officer?
Yeah. Yeah, he
Nice.
is actually, it's really cool. Both him and I, we're 18 months apart, and so we both kind of like went through the same stuff in our childhoods growing up. Both experienced a lot of trauma. He became a police officer. He's been a police officer for 5 years, 6 years or so. And I think he does have his own therapist, and that's kind of what sparked my idea of like starting. So on the side of my full time job doing parole behavioral health, I was like trying to think of something that I could do on the side, um, where I could see just maybe have more of an impact. And he had pursued therapy himself for his own stuff. And he actually looked for a therapist like outside of his department that's not connected at all to his department. And that's when I started thinking, I wonder if there's police officers and other first responders that are out there that are looking for mental health support, but they don't necessarily want to go through their departments, or they don't want to go to like the big places that a lot of officers and first responders go to for mental health support. So that's where I'm at now, is building this practice for that reason.
Okay. Well, I wanted to ask you, Harley, why do you think so many cops avoid getting help or avoid seeking out, professional help when it comes to their mental health and emotional wellness and stuff.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons, and I think it does vary person to person. But I think a big one is even though it's changing and things are starting to change, there still is a stigma around reaching out for help, especially in um, the law enforcement world for police officers. I think that there's a hesitation to reach out because officers are concerned that if they do that, like they automatically think first thing is like, what are the ramifications of me reaching out and having a therapist or potentially getting a diagnosis? What is that going to do to impact my career?
Hmm.
Which is fair for it's a fair concern, and I think it's reasonable to have that concern. Um, and I also think too, officers, I think some might like think to themselves, this is what I signed up for. Like
Hmm.
if I'm struggling, like it's maybe they internalize it and they, if they're like maybe they think if I reach out for help, it's a sign of weakness and
Hmm.
I there's something wrong with me and or whatever, and they try to internalize it and just keep it to themselves. I think there's a lot of different reasons, and I think and but I do, like I said, I think it is changing slowly.
That's good. And I know for me personally, I looked at it like you just said, this is what I signed up for. I don't want to be a sissy. And I would just numb. I would turn to less than healthy behaviors to numb and to not think about it. But I was, I was very what's the right word? My mental health was very poor when I got hired, and I just ignored it. The psychiatrist we had to go to for the entrance portion of the application process, like, called me out, and of course I lied. I was, no, 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 like I'm not like this, but they still hired me. But like he had me dead to rights, but I tried to kind of talk my way through a lot of it, but yeah, I don't know because I mean I'm 46, so I've been out of law enforcement a long time. And my generation, I'm an '80s kid, and we were all taught, suck it up, don't be a bitch, don't talk about your feelings. Anger was the only really accepted form of emotion or expression, and so I'm glad to see that that's kind of changing with the younger guys and girls getting into the profession.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, yeah, my brother is definitely part of that generation, and I'm hopeful that as time continues to go on, that is more of the wave that mental health and reaching out for support doesn't have to be so scary, and it can be looked at as more support than something's wrong with you.
Hmm. Um, Are there some warning signs that you could share with the audience? Maybe if somebody's struggling at like a family member or a close friend or a wife or a spouse or a girl or boyfriend, or I want to include the female officers in this too. I've had female officers on the show, and obviously it's not a male only field. Are there just some warning signs that you kind of share with our audience? It's like,
I think I think some warning signs could look like just feeling one of the I mean some of the things that I think of off the top of my head are always feeling amped up and always feeling like that hypervigilance and not really being able to shut off after shift. Probably feeling like like extra disconnect and just feeling like if they start isolating more and they just aren't reaching out and also I think struggling with more anger and not really knowing why and quick to anger, easy to snap at things. um I think irritability is also an indicator, kind of, I mean, kind of along the lines of what I'm saying. Irritability, that can be a sign of like anxiety and depression going on. It's hard. I think it varies person to person. But I think in general, just probably just not feeling like yourself and feeling like something's off, could be a small indicator too, and maybe there's something deeper going on that you should reach out and look for support on.
Well, I've heard before that anger is really sadness. Is that an accurate statement?
I've heard that too. I think it can be. I think that for a lot of folks, anger, like you said, especially with the male population, um, expressing anger is a lot more. It's more acceptable than like breaking down and crying or
Mhm.
sad. So I think a lot of the times, yeah, it can be like the surface level emotion that comes up for folks that are struggling with like deeper sadness. So yeah, I think for sure that could that's true.
Okay. And as far as like the job's concerned, and this is kind of a dumb question, but I'm gonna ask it. Divorce is so high in law enforcement. And I think that trauma, if you want to use that word right, that men and women bring home from the job, it affects innocent people, for lack of better words. Um, do you feel like at this day and age, the new men and women that are getting hired into departments, do they kind of try to meet that head on and kind of address it before they really get into the job, as far as like being on the street by themselves, like maybe an FTO or in the academy? Because I mean, that's a big part of, I think, the divorce rate, in my opinion.
Yeah, are you saying like are they addressing the trauma beforehand?
Well, kinda just saying you need to be self-aware if you go on a call and you witness, like, a dead body for the first time. It's okay, or it's normal to, like, see that and be like, "Oh, shit, like, this is a heavy thing to deal with." It's not normal just to turn it off and go to the next call, which is what we kinda did,
Mm,
like, be a
yeah,
ro not be a robot, not just be like, "Oh, it's my job."
and like stoicism. Yeah,
Right.
stoicism is a big thing. I think. Mm, so I don't know. I think that it's hard because the main reason why first responders are able to do what they do is because they can do that. They can,
Mhm.
like, compartmentalize and shut things off. I was just talking to my brother about this a couple weeks ago because he told me about a call he went on and how he's, gearing up for a jury trial for a guy that he it was like a 4th of July situation that happened, and he was trying to save a life, and in the on his body cam, I guess the lawyers or the DA or whoever was preparing him for the jury trial coming up, it told him, "Hey, just so you know, you might feel a little bit embarrassed about what you said on body cam, and it might come up during the trial," and he had no idea. He's like, what did I say on body cam?" And they told him that right after he was dealing with this, like, dead body, basically, and trying to, like, save the life on scene, he had stood up and walked straight to his partner, and the first thing out of his mouth was like, "Hey, man, I'm trying to grow out my mustache. How do you think it looks?" And, like, it was, like, the first thing out of his mouth, and it was just and he thought it was and both of course, we were, like, cracking up because I was like, "Oh my god, that's
Yeah.
crazy. Is your sergeant gonna give you a bunch of shit for that?" And
Yeah.
no, he's like, "No, I could totally cover it up as it's just a coping like, that was how I coped." And I'm like, "Well, it sounds like that's what your brain did. Your brain, like, shut down and, like, that was like an I feel like that's an extreme example of the compartmentalization that has to happen
Right.
when officers and first responders are responding to these horrible things, and it's always happening. I mean, some
Mhm.
departments in some cities and locations more than others, but you still have to always there's always the possibility that the most traumatic things that the general population aren't exposed to could happen on your shift. So I think it's hard to ask officers to just not do that and not shut off completely because you kinda have to if you're gonna perform your job well. I think what happens, though, over time is that does have an impact, and it starts to show up as like we're talking about, like, um, you just start to struggle with, emotional regulation skills, and you just start over time, like that always amped up feeling. I mean, we know research has shown that hypertension and high blood pressure and all of those things happen, especially, with officers. And I think there's something I heard of, like, the first 5 years after retirement, some officers, there's like an increased risk of like having heart attacks and stuff. And I
Mhm.
think that just shows that this job, law enforcement and first responders, you're always on edge.
Mhm.
So, all that to say, over time, yes, like shutting down and compartmentalization and all of that can have lasting effects that are probably negative, especially on your mental health. Um, and I think that that's why I have been, trying to offer EMDR and looking at offering that for first responders so it can be something that they can utilize to be able to get through their careers and feel like they're handling it as they go. Because
Yeah.
you're not gonna officers, if they go into like trauma therapy and treatment, maybe another thing that they're thinking is, well, why would I go and and do EMDR if I'm constantly being exposed to these things? Like, what's the point? My suffering is gonna constantly be happening my entire career. Like, I'm just screwed at this point. Like, there's no right. And so, but I do think that like managing it as you go can be helpful long term for sure.
Yeah, and the reason I ask you that question is I know, one of the calls I had that was traumatic, it's a long story, but I lost a patient in a fire because I was a police officer. I didn't have the training to get in the home and all that stuff, and it didn't really hit me until years down the road. Like, I was mad, I was pissed off because the fire department didn't save her, and I was mad about that, and I was mad I couldn't save her, but I went on with the rest of the night answering calls, and I didn't really think about it until years down the road, and then it was like one of those things where, I don't know, it was weird, like, I would see a fire on TV, or I would see a fire truck go by, or I would just random stuff, and that's when I was drinking, so I would, like, get really amped up. When I would drink, I would start to think about all this stuff, but I think back then I was too prideful and too arrogant. I would be like, "Pfft, I'm not talking to anybody, it's stupid." But that was me, and I think, like, my original question was more like, I have a friend, Mike Morgan, he hosts the Resilient Warrior Nation podcast, and he talked about this. He was a cop for 30 years, and
Wow.
he had been retired and was watching another podcast, and all of a sudden a call where he lost a child that drowned, it hit him like a ton of bricks, and he started crying, but he never cried before that. And it's just like it's like we push it down so far, we never process it. So I was just curious if this day and age, if I mean, you can't prevent trauma, but maybe get on top of it and say, okay, you just witnessed this situation. Maybe we should pull you off shift for at least a little bit to go decompress, to go like clear your head, maybe talk to somebody real quick and not just go answer the next call. Because let's be honest, if you just witness something like that, or even what your brother dealt with, you go to the next call, and let's say it's a barking dog call, you're probably gonna be pissed off and don't want to be there, and you're gonna
Yeah.
take somebody's head off. He's like, this is fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, like,
so,
what is
so
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I think when I worked at the police department that I worked at for a few years, they would have, like, they were, like, called, like, critical incident debriefs where they would do that. But I think if I remember correctly, it wasn't right after the incident happened. It was more like they'd have to schedule a time, and it made sense because command staff would be there, and they
Yeah.
would try to gather all the personnel that were on scene and then have a debrief, and so it had to be more organized. I think, yeah, in a perfect world, 100%, if you could debrief right after that horrific call, that would be amazing. I also think too, like, realistically, a lot of officers are going call to call, especially in those busy departments, and, um, so that's why I think having an officer having their own therapist where they can go and process those things on like a weekly or biweekly or whatever basis, that's better than nothing. And that could totally, I think, like you said, I don't think that there's any way to prevent, especially like trauma exposure, right? Trauma is going to happen because the officers and first responders are exposed to it on a daily basis all the time. More than, like I said, more than what an average person is exposed to on a daily basis. Um, but I think finding an outlet, especially something like like therapy, even though there's stigma around it, can be really helpful at managing the symptoms and managing what's going on internally before it gets to the breaking point, before divorce happens, before you just like shut down and then your partner's like, why aren't you talking to me anymore? Like, all the things that happen to law enforcement and first responders that we see because of the effects of trauma exposure and the jobs that they're in.
Can you mentioned EMDR. Can you kind of explain to the audience more about that and really what it is?
Yeah. So EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing. I always struggle with that word.
It's a lot. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
it
lot.
it it is a big word. So basically what it is, it was founded, I think, in the late '80s, and it's basically it's a trauma modality, it's a trauma treatment modality that's used by clinicians, I think, all around the world now, and it's become more and more popular, as the years have gone by. The EMDR's shown to be really, effective at treating trauma, um, and it is considered, the gold one of the gold standard treatment modalities for treating trauma, and basically what it is you're just using bilateral stimulation, and the cool thing about and you're using bilateral stimulation to reprocess traumatic memories that have been stored in improperly and ineffectively, and they might still be, and because of the way that they were stored in improperly, they are still having an impact in the present. So things that have happened in the past have been stored improperly. And then when things like you mentioned, if you see a fire on the TV or you are in a parking lot at a Walmart and something happened at that Walmart or the fire, triggers that memory to come back. And then you're all of a sudden flooded by these like bodily sensations and you're hyperventilating all the things because that memory hasn't been processed. So what EMDR does is it uses bilateral stimulation, whether it's eye movement or tapping or audio bilateral, and you basically like move through processing the memory, but you don't what's cool about it is you don't have to go into really great detail, and that's what's awesome because and especially for officers and for first responders who like don't I think a lot of the times when people think of going to therapy, they're like, well, I don't want to talk about what I went through. I don't want to rehash everything.
Mhm.
Um, because it's just too much and
Yeah.
like you don't want to like face it anymore and you just don't want to go over all the details. And you don't have to with EMDR. With EMDR, you're starting with a memory. You bring it to the forefront of your mind, and with one foot in the present, one foot in the past, you're working with your therapist and you're just going through bilateral stimulation in short sets. And you're basically like doing it on your own. The therapist isn't like prompting much. They'll give you a prompt and then you'll do the bilateral stimulation and then you continue moving forward until it starts to clear, what we say. Clears
Okay.
up and then you have a different sort of feeling about the memory itself by the end of it.
Interesting. And I think that's pretty I hear more about that nowadays. And I've known some folks that have gone through that kind of treatment, that modality when they've done you know, um therapy sessions and things of that nature. Do you feel like people can ever fully recover from their trauma? Does that ever just get to a point to where you can kind of, I don't know if move past it's the right word, or I mean, you kind of you're healed. Is that a realistic outcome?
Think that there's maybe not like you completely forget and you completely like I think healing could look like you accept it in a different way. Like you're not as bothered, especially if we're talking about treating trauma with something like EMDR, you're not, obviously like EMDR is not going to erase things and it's not going
Mhm.
to make you feel like a whole new person necessarily. I mean, it could, but like you're not gonna like forget all the things that you went through, and you're not gonna just it's not gonna like create a blank slate for you necessarily. But it does the reprocessing can create it can lead to you having a different approach with things and not being so impacted by things that were once traumatic. So you maybe triggers look different. You're able to cope differently and use coping skills that you didn't know or didn't have before. So I think, and kind of like how grief is like that, right? They say like grief, if you when you go through grief, you don't ever like you don't ever heal like 100%. You just kind of move through life in a different way, and it morphs into something different. So I think that maybe trauma is the same way. Maybe we're just, with treatment, it's you live with it in a different way. I don't know if
Okay.
that makes sense. So
Yeah, no, it does, and I maybe in a way too, maybe it doesn't bother you. You don't let it define you because I think sometimes it's easy to get into like a victim mindset, like woe is me because this happened in my childhood. So um I haven't been given a fair shot at life, or this isn't fair because I went through this. And I know that was one thing for me when I went through my last divorce. I had to really stay out of that hole because it was easy just to go into a dark place. And I tried to really stay out of it, and really um getting my spirituality back is what kind of kept me grounded, because I realized that there was more to life than just Steve. Like Steve's way does not work. So
yeah,
it just doesn't. But so that makes sense though with what you're saying.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, speaking on that, does faith play a role in your life at all, especially with helping other people and kind of seeing maybe the dark side or the underside of life, just dealing with so many, now you're dealing with people that are coming out of prison, you need law enforcement world. Does that play a role for you at all?
Personally, I didn't grow up, well, I was baptized Catholic, but I
Okay.
don't practice religion. I think I'm
Okay.
more, like, spiritual.
Yeah.
I don't like thinking of the idea that there's nothing, like, after life, and that there's no higher power. I believe that there is a higher power. Um, and a lot of it, I think that religion and spirituality can help people. It's very grounding.
Hmm.
And as I move through the work that I do, I find it more and more useful, because a lot of the stuff, like you said, like working with the population that I do, I call them clients. Officers will call them offenders and parole, but
Mm.
the clients that I work with have done really, really egregious things sometimes, and it's really hard for me. And I'm still kind of trying to navigate that and figure it out and trying to find meaning in the horrible things that happen to other people, and so I think I'm still trying to explore that. Um yeah, that's still something that I'm trying to figure out myself, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because I usually say on here, like, I know for me personally, like Christ is a foundation for my mental health. Like without him, when because I mean, I'll just be 100% transparent. I was in therapy for 3 years when I was a hardcore drinker. I don't like the term alcoholic because I just don't want to label myself. I didn't feel like I was an alcoholic, but I really didn't. I believed in God, but I didn't follow him. I didn't put him in anything, and I just put myself in it. But I was in therapy and I was trying to process all this stuff, but it's kind of like joining a gym and you hire a trainer, but then you're like, I'm not doing that. Exercise is stupid. It sucks. Or I'm going to eat pizza, but I'm still going to work out. Like it wasn't enough for me to like really be serious about it. I'd go to the appointments. I would do the homework. I would be open and talk, but I never really saw the big picture. I never really saw the benefit. I was doing it more to please other people and to kind of check a box. I wasn't really there for, and that was just my personal experience, but I wasn't there to heal or to grow or to evolve. I was still kind of like, well, I guess I need to go talk to this person and this happened and I'll talk and I'll all that. But I would blame others a lot. I wouldn't take responsibility until I really kind of got sober and got my act together. But we talk about that a lot on this show because so many people that I meet and talk to just feel like they're lost and they don't have any direction or guidance, especially we haven't talked about this yet, when they leave the military or law enforcement and their identity shifts because they don't wear that uniform anymore. And I don't know how it is where you've been, but like my old department, I went out in a blaze of glory, not in a good way either. I was an outcast. So as soon as that badge came off and they took it from me, I lost 90% of the people that I thought were friends in my life. And it was just like, oh shit, like where's the thin blue line? Where's the brotherhood? And it just wasn't there. And I'm not like being a victim or anything, but it was like, kind of like, okay, now I'm on this island. I got to figure out what to do. And so I know for me personally, like faith, once I got back to it, it kept me grounded. So when things would go crazy or sideways, which they will eventually in life because nothing's perfect, it just kind of kept me on the right track. That's why I'm sitting here talking to you today. I mean, honestly, that's why I have a podcast. Because I never would have done this before. I never would have got on here and said anything about myself or shared any of the the unpleasant experiences that I've been through. But I know now it can help others and maybe help them keep from making the same bad choices that I did.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I do think that religion can serve that for a lot of people. It can be really grounding, and I think that there is something to say about religion having more like I, I don't know if you've heard this, Steve, but like people who have religion are like more socially connected, and they have like there's a general consensus that they're happier, they have more community and more meaning, and it makes sense why that is. So if that works for folks to have religion and believe in that and have that as a grounding force, that's I'm 100% I stand by that. If it's healing for folks, whatever it takes to get to that point of, like you said, like finding self accountability and finding meaning and purpose, if that's what it can do, yeah, that's awesome. I wouldn't fight against that.
How do you stay grounded personally and like because you're dealing with so much, especially as a therapist, like how do you balance your own mental health or your own um overall wellness when you're dealing with so much all the time? It's got to be a lot on your shoulders. I mean,
Yeah. It's hard, especially like this summer has been really hard for me. I don't know if it's I had a colleague say earlier that Mercury is in retrograde. I don't know if that's a part of like the last 2 weeks have been
I
a
don't even know what that means, but
don't know what it means either, but I just it's been a hard summer, but like a lot going on in my personal life, and
Mm.
then the work that I do, like I said, is really hard working with people coming out of prison, and some of the things I hear is just hard to be around sometimes. For me, I have my own therapist, and I do therapy. I try to go weekly. And then I stay really connected to family. Family is really big for me, and I'm a lot more open. Like if I'm struggling with something, I can go home and talk to my husband about it, and then we can talk through it. So I don't necessarily like isolate as much. I think that's really helpful too. Reaching out and having people that you can go to and say, "Hey, I'm having a hard time. Can I just," or not even saying that, but just like going up to
Yeah,
people and being
yeah,
like, my life feels really hard right now and I need to talk about it.
yeah.
So family is really big for me, and just I also I'm uh I'm in a band. So I do music on the side, and we perform, so that's an outlet for me. So I think having like hobbies and interests and that kind of stuff is important for folks that are in general. I think having
Mhm.
like what they call like self-care, right? As
Yeah.
like, um cheesy as it sounds, it's important for your mental health, and even therapists struggle too. Like we're just human too. And I say the same thing about officers and first responders. We're all just humans at the end of the day.
Why do you think so many men isolate? Do you think it's because of the stigma around mental health for men, or because I know, like, you see the stats and you see the stuff online that more men nowadays don't have as many friends, they're more lonely, divorce is through the roof, especially in law enforcement. Why do you think so? Because I was one of those guys. I mean, I would read books and stay in my house. I went to work and I'd go to church, but I didn't really do much.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be around people, and so why do you think that is, Harley? Is there like a clinical explanation for that, or is that just guys being just feel shame and don't feel like they need to be around people?
I think the gender differences are really that is a thing. I think women in our society, it's more socially acceptable for women to be more vocal and emotional and
Mhm.
have like there's more of an acceptance or a norm I should say for women to reach out if they're struggling and to be more vocal about it, whereas men um it's it feels more socially acceptable to shut down and handle it on your own and be a man and take care of the family and just like get through it and deal with your shit and not talk to anyone about it. Like that's um as a society kind of like how our culture is, and men don't talk about their problems as much, I think, because of it. And I think clinically, like that can lead to things like anxiety and depression. I mean, it can lead to different outcomes. But there are gender differences, and I think for police officers especially, and first responders, you are trained and you signed up to work a job where you're there for others all the time.
Mhm.
You're the savior. You're the one that saves people. You don't need saving. Like there's no time for that. Or
Yeah.
you like other people have it worse off than me, right? And I think that's a problem, and it has been a problem. Like I said though earlier, I think it is shifting, or it feels like it's starting to a little bit, or at least, and I think the shift, we can see it happening because it's being talked about more. And
Mhm.
that's a good sign, being like, recognizing that men are struggling and that is a
Mhm.
problem and that it's real and trying to understand why that's happening. And I think that that's we're taking the first steps towards like addressing that for sure.
Yeah, and it's interesting to hear you talk about, the stigma with men and mental health, and this is gonna sound probably really, like, mean for me to say this, but I'm gonna do it. I don't see, at least where I live, and I'm in the Nashville area. I don't see men in today's society the way I saw them 10 years ago. Like the definition of a man, like I get we're hardwired, guys are hardwired to just figure their stuff out, to not talk about their emotions. But I mean, okay, there's a good example. When I was growing up, we had Arnold Schwarzenegger. We had Sylvester Stallone. We all wanted to be jacked. We all wanted to join the military. We wanted to kick some ass and like
Yeah, yeah.
get in fights. And now you see these dudes, they're like, it's just different. They're not like that. At least not on the exterior. They might be like pin up on the inside, but they don't, like, in my day job, I'm a personal trainer, and more women, so this kind of applies to the mental health side. More women take their health more serious. From my experience, they'll go to the gym, they'll look at what they're eating better than the guys do. But if you flip the coin and went back to the 90s, I think it was the other way around. More guys were taking care of themselves. So sometimes it's hard for me to process, like, guys not wanting to get help for their mental health, but they're not like portraying the manly man, or you know what I mean? Like the masculinity that we grew up with in the 80s.
Yeah, I think I see what you're saying.
That
Yeah.
was long-winded.
I
But
mean, I think that as a society, we always go through, I think we've gone through different waves and different times. And yeah, I think that things are changing. I don't know. I think that mental health in general has only been talked about more over the last, I mean, we only started recognizing PTSD in what was it, like the 80s when we started like studying veterans, and that's when we
Mhm.
started understanding and then labeling it as like trauma and understanding that this is actually a clinical thing going on, and a clinical phenomena that we have to pay attention to. Um, so I don't know. I think that I'm hopeful that as time continues to go on, yeah, more and more men do reach out for support because it doesn't make you weak and it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It just means that you're human and that
Yeah.
um you are trying, and I think if anything, I think that it shows that you are more badass if you reach out for help
100
and take care of
100%.
yourself,
Yeah.
'cause and I'm sure as a personal trainer, like, you tell people this too, like, you can't take care, like, your mind and body are connected, right?
Mhm.
And that's also something we're continuing to learn as we move along as a society too, is I really acknowledging the connection between mind and body. If your mind's
Mhm.
not right, your body's not gonna be right and vice versa, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one thing too that you're seeing more of nowadays is more, at least from the male perspective, more guys are going on podcasts and being more open about their
Yeah.
mental health that have done these extraordinary things in life, like police officers, military, so I think it's good for the younger generation to see that, like, oh, okay, a real man is not just pissed off and angry all the time. He's actually like can
Working
stay
on
calm.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, like, changing the narrative of what a real man is, and I know I kinda got long-winded on my little soapbox there, but, it's hard for me to picture, the guy in the cardigan sweater punching a hole in the wall because anger is like you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I know that can happen, but the guy that's like a police officer that just saw a bad call, and then he goes home and his wife's bitching at him, and I could see that dude laying into a wall because I was that guy back in the day. But, some of these cats that I see, I'm just like, I don't think that dude ever been mad in his life. But, it's
Yes.
like
Yeah,
and obviously that's not good. You're not supposed to come home and yell at your kids and all that.
yeah.
But so I think it's interesting to still see that. But I do think it's changing. I really do. And I think that at least from the male side of the house, more men are open minded when it comes more open minded it comes when it comes to mental health.
And I
Um
think and I you can still be manly and still be, like, wear the pants in the house and all the things
mhm.
and still take care of yourself. Like, why
Yeah, definitely.
like, those 2 things don't have to exist separately. Like, they can be cohesive
Mhm.
and yeah, I don't know. I think that it they work together.
The two kindest, most gentle dudes that I've talked to on this platform are two of the most dangerous men to ever walk this planet. And it was weird. It was, like, really cool to get to talk to him, but it almost threw me off. I was like, "Wow, these guys are so easy to talk to." But you see him online, you're like, "Man, that guy's a badass." Like, I bet
Yeah.
he is just a monster.
And
They're
they
monsters, but it's control, like Dr.
Yeah,
Peterson
yeah,
says,
yeah. I was gonna say control. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's also, yeah, taking care of your mental health and figuring out how to, like, not only, like, work through your shit, but also, like, have more control. Because I feel
Mhm,
like, a lot of, maybe some feelings with what comes with trauma is feeling out of control. Like, you're not
mhm.
in control of your body and you're not in control of the intrusive thoughts and all of those things, and with therapy and reaching out and, like, taking care of your mental health, you can regain some more sense of that sense of control.
Definitely. I wanted to ask you, is there like a principle or something that you've lived by that's kinda helped carry you through your own, personal trials and tribulations that you wanna share with the audience?
A principle.
Or like, like just a way of life or something that's kinda kept you going. Like, I
Mhm.
always like to say, like, discipline is my favorite word in the English language
Yeah,
because, motivation will
yeah,
get you there, but discipline keeps you there. But,
yeah, yeah. I think for me, and I'm sure, like with you, things it waxes and wanes, but with me, I think, especially in my career and just how I am as a person, um, the words that I live by are unconditional positive regard. So I always look at other people and I don't right off the bat, like, my first thing isn't always judgmental, and always, like, thinking of the worst stuff, and it's like I said, it's hard
Yeah.
sometimes, like,
Yeah.
with, like, some
Yeah.
of the stuff I come across, but I still feel like I can identify some sort of and have some small inkling of or some small fraction of positive regard for all humans that I come across, and I think, um, as a therapist, it's important to me to have that, but also it's just more of a natural thing that I have. I love humans, and we all have our shit that we've gone through, and we're all just trying to survive and trying to figure it out, you know?
Yeah. No,
I think
that's
that's
good. And
really
it's
true.
yeah. And I think you could also like look at too, like staying grateful. That's kind
Yeah.
of like what I heard you saying. And I think it's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard to do that, but to see the positive in things. And one thing I try to do is like what can I learn from this? Instead
Yeah.
of why is this happening to me? What can I take away from this? You know, like
Yeah.
how can
100%.
I yeah. Do you have like a favorite quote or anything like that you want to share? I always ask everybody this, so I'm not picking on you. But
A favorite quote?
because I was gonna ask scripture, but I'll ask you a quote and then I'm gonna read a scripture. But
Yeah, I think, I do have one. I'd have to, like, look it up, though. It's by Carl Rogers. Well, actually, I the one that comes to mind is and I don't know if it's, like, word for word, and I don't know if this is Carl Rogers. It might be, but it goes something like, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, you will, um, call it you will live your life the way you do and call it fate," or something like that.
okay.
Until you, like, face your shit, you'll always,
Yeah.
like, think that it's your fate, your destiny.
Okay.
I
Gotcha.
totally butchered that.
That's all right.
Well,
I put you on the spot. I put
you
you on
get
the
the
spot.
point, right? You get the point.
Yeah. I totally get it. Well, I'm gonna just add to it. I'm gonna read a scripture real fast. Fear not, for I am with you. I will strengthen you and help you. And this is from the book of Isaiah, chapter 41, verse 10. And so my takeaway, and for people listening, I'll just say it like this: God is always with you, regardless of what you're going through, regardless of your past, what you've done in your life. He's never going to leave you. So even if you remove yourself from him, he's still there. You know, he's not going anywhere and he's always going to be there. Cause it's easy sometimes for us to feel like I'm all alone. Nobody loves me. Nothing's going right in my life. And that might be true at a certain point in time, but God is always there. I learned that lesson the hard way. So that's why I'm
Mhm.
sharing that. But so ultimately I had to surrender to him to realize, okay, now I need to live my life in a way that I'm an asset. I'm not a liability because I was a liability for a long time. I didn't see it that way when I was in that moment or that season, but I definitely was I've been divorced twice and I've been sober almost 5 years, so it's definitely a liability.
Yeah,
So, I
well,
mean,
congratulations on
thank you.
sobriety and where you're at now. I mean, that's awesome, and it's inspirational for sure, and I'm
Thank
sure
you.
you're inspiring a lot of people who, um, are maybe going through the same things that you have or similar things, and they're trying to look for some sort of guidance, so that's awesome.
Thank you. And it's actually very therapeutic for me to do this, to get to talk to other people. It's really good for my mental, especially when I got a therapist on here. But it's
Yeah.
it's very it's really helped my emotional well-being and my mental health being able to do this.
Yeah.
Because it feels like in a way you're like I've developed a lot of good friends through this and a lot of it's like a bond. And I don't like the word tribe because that's like a buzzword, but it's like you got your tribe of I rather call it a brotherhood, even though there's been
Yeah.
women on here. But
Yeah.
it's like, okay, it's we're doing this as a team. It's not just one dude. It's not the lone wolf mentality,
Yeah,
which is
and
not
putting
healthy.
this stuff out, I think
Hmm.
it does it facilitates that. It helps people realize like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not the only one that struggled with this."
Right.
And this
Yeah.
is what this guy did to get through it. Like maybe I could try that too, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Harley, if there's somebody listening tonight or watching here on YouTube and they're on the edge of giving up, what would you say to that person?
I would say reach out for help. If you can, if you can't think of anyone or you don't feel like you have anyone to reach out to, there's the crisis line. So 988, um, call, text, whatever you have to do. But I would say, maybe it doesn't feel like it's worth it to keep trying, but um, you should. And I think reaching out and trying to prevent yourself from further isolation, I think will do you more good than.
It's good advice. Do you want to tell us about your practice and how people can kind of get in touch with you if they want to reach out to you?
Yeah. So I have a private practice. It's a small private practice where I don't just do EMDR. So for cops or first responders that are listening that aren't interested in EMDR, that's totally fine. But I do therapy with first responders only.
Okay.
And it's virtual right now. I don't know, someday it might grow, who knows, but right now, and it's completely confidential. Like, I don't work with departments. I don't work with, I'm on my own, doing my own thing. Um and right now I take Kaiser and United. I'm going to
Okay,
be
cool.
hopefully credentialed pretty soon here with Aetna and Cigna coming soon. But yeah, my practice is just focused on helping first responders move through their struggles and work through trauma, and try to use my personal experience working with law enforcement and having family in law enforcement, and really trying to use that in the work that I do, and have it inform my approach with first responders. So you can
So
sorry.
go ahead. Sorry. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I have a website,
Okay.
harleyroseclinical.com. And then I'm also on Psychology Today. So yeah, you can
Nice.
reach out, send me an email, and I'd be super excited to have a conversation.
Awesome. So you can work with officers that are not in Colorado virtually?
I was literally, Steve, as I was like driving home today from work, I was like, I wonder if I should, because I know you're in a different state and I'm in
Yeah.
Colorado.
Yeah.
I could, if some, if there were officers or first responders that started reaching out from other states, I would totally look at getting licensed in different states and offering that. Yeah. And then expanding. Yeah. Right now,
Okay.
though, I am Colorado only, but
Okay.
yeah.
I know a lot of people in Utah. I've had
Really?
which not too far from you. Yeah, a lot of been on the show and Brady owns or runs it's called Battle Forge Foundation. I need to get you guys in touch with each other, but they do a lot of stuff for veterans and first responders and mental health. They do big events and stuff. So yeah,
That's
I was
awesome.
I was just curious because I couldn't remember how that worked. I thought you had to be in the same state, but I couldn't remember how all that worked. So
Yeah, it's for licensure, you have to, or for clinicians, you have to be licensed in the state that you're practicing in. But I don't
okay.
think it's as big as I don't think it's a super big feat to try to get that license in other states so you can practice. So I could totally look into it. Like I said, if there were people reaching out from other states, I would definitely be interested in pursuing and figuring that out so I could offer the service to folks in other states. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure it would help you grow your practice, being able to
Yeah.
talk to a lot more people outside of Colorado.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
There's
It's
a
so funny you mentioned that because I was literally just thinking that on my way home from work today.
there's a ton of Colorado people here in Nashville, so
Well,
that's all
really?
yeah, that's all I hear about, like, all day at work, so
Oh,
California, Colorado, Texas, and Florida. I'm like, "If you're from Florida, what are you doing here?"
I
But
know,
because 'cause
right?
I'd be in Florida, that's where I'd be.
That's crazy. I feel like that's how Colorado is. I feel like, I mean, like, I'm from California. I've been here for 11 years now, but there's people from, like, all over, and I feel like I'm hearing more people moving from, like, New York to Colorado, which seems like that's, like, really far to go.
Yeah. Are you close to the wildfires right now?
No, I am. So that's more southern Colorado from my understanding,
Mm,
in the mountains.
okay.
Um I'm like 20 minutes outside of Boulder, Colorado.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, so I'm a
Uh
little bit more north. I think most of the fires are way down south. but we still, like, we had a bunch of smoke coming up this way, and
Mm,
the rain has helped. We've had some rain, so it's helped clear it up, but it's been
okay, good.
yeah.
I had, 2 clients lose their house in Colorado. They have a second home, like a cabin, and one of them's a
Oh,
psychiatrist. Yeah, they lost it,
oh my god.
4th of July. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
she
that's
flew out Tuesday morning because she had to be there in person to get, like, some kinda access to go check it out, and I was like, "Man," and the whole thing is gone. Like, I just
that's
can't even
sad.
imagine. Yeah, I can't even
I
imagine.
can't imagine that either. I've seen, like, some people that I know were, like, getting evacuated. I think I'm already kind of, like, somewhat of an anxious person, and I feel like that's why I did co-response because I was always, like, ready and, like, amped up and ready to
Yeah,
go.
yeah,
Um, but if I had to be evacuated from my house, I don't even know what I would do. I'd be losing my mind the whole time.
yeah, yeah.
That's crazy.
Um did you say earlier that we got cut off for a second? That you do music?
Yeah, yeah, I'm in a little band.
What kind of music is it?
It's so we cover Tom Petty. It's a Tom Petty cover
Oh, okay.
band. Um, and I'm like one of the lead singers, but I do more backup because obviously with Tom Petty, like there's not a lot of like opportunity for female lead, but there's
Yeah,
like 6 of us and we do shows. Right now we're like mostly around the Front Range.
okay.
But yeah, super cool. I mean, music's like super healing and it's fun and I don't know, they're older, but I don't mind.
That's cool. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
so I wanted to ask you, I had a therapist tell me, so we had a program when I was a police officer. It was kind of like a free therapy service, but I had to go for anger management.
Uh-huh.
so so I didn't have to, but it was in my best interest. So I went, and she told me that I shouldn't listen to metal anymore because I'm an adrenaline junkie. And I
What?
basically was like, yeah, yeah, it ain't gonna happen, dude. Like,
Yeah,
cause
no.
I'm a huge
No.
metalhead. So I was gonna ask you, like, are there certain like personality types drawn to certain types of music?
I don't know.
We
I
need a
don't
case
know.
study on this.
Yeah, they should study that. I feel like maybe, but then I think they're like I like all kinds of different music. I think
Mm,
and maybe like when you go through different seasons of your life, maybe your music taste changes. I don't know. I don't know. I've never been asked that question. That's a really good question. I'll have to think about that. I don't know. I
I,
really
I
don't.
was I was just curious because I don't know how people work out to like Lionel Richie and shit. Like
Oh yeah.
and I'm not even joking, dude. Like, I mean, that's a real thing. Like
Oh,
where I'm at, yeah. Like
that
we're
yeah.
not playing Pantera at my studio. We're playing like, I mean, this is
Well,
too hard,
yeah.
you know. Like,
I agree. I
but
think that if you're working out, I mean, it makes sense to have something that like amps you up. It makes you feel like I don't know, like I can't imagine listening to like slow stuff if you're trying to like work. I don't know. But I think
yeah,
that maybe some people do. Classical music if you're working out, that'd be crazy.
oh, yeah, that's psychotic.
Yeah.
That's
Like
like some Christian
that is
Bale.
pathological. That is pathological right
Yeah,
there.
that's American Psycho right there. Like, or Huey Lewis. Well, I know for me, like when I'm driving, I gotta like put on something chill because like I get so irritated driving. Like I have to like
I do,
just like
yeah.
it.
I
It's
feel
like,
like if you're prone to, like, road rage and
yeah,
there's
oh yeah,
and it's, like, rush hour, you probably shouldn't be listening to something that amps you up a bit more, but that's just the
yeah.
same advice I don't know. Live your
All
life
right.
the way you want.
I was just curious. That's cool. You do music. I was just curious what your take was on that because when that therapist told me that, I was like, whatever, dude. That's not gonna
I
happen.
I mean, I
Like,
think, like, if I don't know, I've never heard of that, of music impacting, like, behavior to the point of, like, you're having a problem and you're blaming it on the music. I think music is I think it for most people, the reason why we listen to music is because it brings us joy and
yeah,
we it's it's enjoyment. I think that um it's weird to like blame anger issues on music and attributing it to a certain type of music as causing the issues that you're having. I think it was deeper than that, you know?
Yeah, that actually happened to Ozzy Osbourne in the '80s. He got sued over one of his songs 'cause a kid took his own life, and the family blamed a certain song, and he lost. He got sued for it.
Yeah, I
But,
just don't think that something like that, I don't think you could blame it on music. I think
yeah, I don't either. Yeah, I
other
don't
stuff
either.
going on, you know?
Right, right. Well, I really enjoyed this conversation, and I really appreciate you taking, time out, especially for your first podcast and coming on
I
here and,
know. Thank you so much,
just telling us
Steve.
more about you and how, especially kind of breaking that stigma with mental health and law enforcement. It's so important, so important to spread that message.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Thank you so much for having me. And I think it's important to I didn't say this, but I think it's important that officers and first responders and anyone in general that's looking for therapy, find a therapist that you like.
Yeah.
Like, and it might take some work, maybe it won't, like, maybe you'll click with one right off the bat, but that's the most important thing for, like, finding some sort of benefit out of therapy and feeling like you move towards healing is liking who you're working with. Because if you don't like
Mhm.
who you're working with, you're not gonna make any sort of progress. That's
Yeah.
number 1 most important.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. Thanks you everybody for checking out the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast tonight. Be sure to ring that bell, subscribe to the channel. New episodes drop every week, and we're also on Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcast. Harley, I really appreciate your time tonight. Thank you so much for joining
Yeah.
the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast.
Thanks so much, Steve. You're amazing. Thank you for what you
Thank
do.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for what you do. I just hope a lot of people hear this and more police officers, first responders just realize it doesn't make you weak to ask for help because it takes more courage to reach out and get help with things.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you so much,
Awesome.
Steve.
Thank you.